Good afternoon. Please be seated. We're going to do some introductions, and then we hope that you'll do the same as well as introduce your teacher. My name is Britt Cremeyer. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada, not Nevada. I'm a We the People alum. I currently reside in Boise, Idaho, where I'm an Ada County Public Defender.
I'm Caitlin Johnston. I'm originally from Indiana. I'm also a We the People alum, but never made it to nationals, so you've bested me already. And I'm now an attorney in New York. I work at a tech startup.
And I am Paul Millette. I'm a professor at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I live in Wisconsin now, but I'm originally from Massachusetts.
Good evening, I'm Natalie Schneider.
Hi, I'm Madison Kroll.
I'm Marissa Floam.
I'm Hayden Suter, and we're here with our teacher, Milton Hyams.
Hi.
Wonderful. Well, this is Unit 5, right? We're in the right room? Perfect. We're going to ask you question number 3. If I were king, I would not allow people to go about burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment which says that the right to free speech shall not be abridged. Burning the flag is a form of expression. Speech doesn't just mean written or oral words. Burning a flag is a symbol that expresses an idea. Do you agree or disagree with Justice Scalia's opinion? Why or why not? How has the meaning of free speech, as defined by the courts, changed over time? Should the government ban websites that advocate hate speech towards ethnic, racial, or religious groups? Why or why not? What, if any, restrictions the courts have placed on freedom of expression? Which of these restrictions do you support or oppose? Explain your positions. You may begin.
In 1999, Vietnam War veteran Gary May testified to the Senate Judiciary Committee. As offensive and painful as flag burning is, I believe that those dissenting voices need to be heard. The freedom of expression, even when it hurts, is the truest test of our dedication to the belief that we have that right.
We agree with Justice Scalia that speech doesn't just mean written or oral words. Burning a flag is a symbol that expresses an idea, as held in Texas v. Johnson. Most significantly, the context in which a symbol is used for purposes of expression is key, for the context gives meaning to the symbol. After the Civil War, the American flag was revered as an incorruptible national image. As philosopher Paul Tillich wrote, "The flag participates in the power and dignity of the nation for which it stands. An attack on the flag is felt as an attack on the group in which it is acknowledged."
Because of the symbolic nature of the flag, burning it is one of the most effective ways to convey an individual's political beliefs. And therefore, in these circumstances, expression should receive the highest protection.
The meaning of free speech, as defined by the courts, has changed over time. It initially served as a tool to protect spoken or written words. It has evolved into a powerful means for individual expression, including nonverbal conduct, as demonstrated under Tinker v. Des Moines.
Additionally, the medium in which speech occurs has changed as a result of the digital age. In Packingham v. North Carolina, the Supreme Court deemed the internet the modern public square. This opinion furthered the debate about the government's role in regulating speech online. The government should not ban websites that advocate hate speech towards racial, ethnic, or religious groups for 2 main reasons. First, hate speech is protected under the First Amendment, as demonstrated by the Supreme Court in cases such as National Socialist Party v. Skokie, Snyder v. Phelps, and Rad v. St. Paul. Additionally, the term hate speech is vague, overbroad, and subjective, and can be easily abused by the government.
Second, self-regulation of the internet is the most effective manner in which to protect consumers, implementing the free market theory originated by John Stuart Mill. For example, after the 2017 riots in Charlottesville, Virginia, the domain GoDaddy banned the website Daily Storer because of its promotion of white supremacy and neo-Nazism.
Additionally, people will choose what websites to browse or ignore based on their content. Recently, with the release of the Facebook scandal concerning Cambridge Analytica, nearly 20 million people deleted their accounts, including billionaire Elon Musk, who removed the Tesla and SpaceX accounts.
As philosopher Fred S. Siebert wrote, "Let all with something to say be free to express themselves. The true and sound will survive. Government should keep out of the battle and not weigh the odds in favor of one side or the other."
The Supreme Court has approved of government restrictions on freedom of expression in the following instances: inciting imminent lawless action, as demonstrated in Brandenburg v. Ohio; fighting words, as in Chaplinsky v. New Hampshire; defamation, as shown in New York Times v. Sullivan; obscenity, as in Miller v. California; and true threats as defined in Virginia v. Black.
Expression may also be restricted when a state has a compelling governmental interest which outweighs the individual's interest, or when the government neutrally regulates the time, place, and manner of the expression.
We support the restrictions the court has placed on freedom of expression except for fighting words, as fighting words too closely resembles hate speech. In Chaplinsky v. New Hampshire, Chaplinsky merely expressed his opinions by calling a police officer a damned racketeer and a damned fascist.
Freedom of expression is essential to our liberty. As stated by Justice Douglas in Terminello v. Chicago, a function of free speech under our system of government is to invite dispute. It may indeed serve its high purpose when it induces a condition of unrest or even stirs people to anger. Thank you.
I want to pick up on one of the last things you talked about. You say that the case revolving around fighting words is wrong. So where would you draw the line?
Well, fighting words has actually only been used to restrict freedom of expression in Chaplinsky v. New Hampshire. So we think that that exception to freedom of expression should just not exist at all.
In addition to this, because it's so close to hate speech, and hate speech is such a vague term, there isn't really a place to draw the line, which is why it's an unnecessary restriction.
Is there another test that you might use for that? I'm just thinking, you know, if someone's being made to feel threatened or...
Well, there's a difference between hate speech, true threats, harassment, or bullying, and there's different criteria for each of these. So true threats under Virginia v. Black would be a person threatening a person with a physical action to harm that person, and harassment is actually a persistent occurrence towards a person. So there is a difference between all of these three issues.
Hate speech is just far more clearly defined in the exceptions, whereas fighting words is just kind of vague, overused, and things like that. So hate speech should just be the main proprietor for that restriction.
Do you think something like pornography really adds to the marketplace of ideas?
I would definitely say that the marketplace of ideas is in the eye of the beholder. So I think that everybody's speech is value, including something like pornography. It's whoever the person is and their ideas, when they're able to express that, that is what the marketplace of ideas means.
Also, pornography can be seen as something that is artistic to many people, so that artistic value can be placed as something such as symbolic speech, as also demonstrated in Texas v. Johnson. So that speech should also be allowed in the marketplace of ideas because it is a form of expression.
I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. We're talking about fighting speech. Where would cyberbullying lie on this spectrum, and how do you anticipate schools tackle speech that happens outside the classroom?
Well, in our Washoe County School District, we actually have a test implemented. It's a 3-part test. It is, and it basically explains the rules and regulations. So the first part of the test would be harassment, and then the second part would be if it's reoccurring and if it is uninvited. So our school district uses that test to ensure that we don't overcross that line of that hate speech and that bullying, so they can regulate it properly.
Well, it's a really difficult question, actually, because by allowing the school to address cyberbullying that occurs outside of school, that's really reaching into the parental side that really parents should be dealing with other parents. So it really depends. I think that it should really be left up to law enforcement, and school really shouldn't have a hand in what occurs off campus.
What about on campus? So what about the gun control walkouts that we've seen happening across the country? Should students be given detention for doing that during school hours?
Well, under Tinker v. Des Moines, schools have a right to regulate the expression that happens in their school if it creates a material and substantial disruption. So schools can definitely choose to say that many people walking out at one time is a disruption of their class and they're going to take actions against it. But I know that our school definitely supported us in walking out, and they definitely supported our right to express ourselves that way.
But I would agree with what they stated in Tinker v. Des Moines, that students don't lose their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. And I think that things such as the walkout, like that's using your right to assembly. So I think that it's very important to be able to do that in a school environment.
Do you think something that's somebody trying to sell something, like in an advertisement, for instance, do you think that that sort of speech aimed towards consumers should be protected the same way that advocating for a political candidate should be?
So commercial speech actually has less freedom of speech protections. As shown in Rubin v. Coors, they said that the government only needed to show a substantial government interest in limiting commercial speech. So in that way, it has less protections than, say, symbolic speech or freedom of expression.
So should the government be able to tell Facebook what to do with my company's page on Facebook more so than they can, what Cambridge Analytica is doing or what these now we know to be fake news outlets were doing? Should there be different tests for Facebook from the government?
Sorry for
Go
interrupting,
ahead.
but absolutely not. Facebook is a private social media platform, and it is a private industry, so therefore they should be able to regulate how their consumers and constituents speak online. For example, Facebook has regulations in which that speech must be conducted, so if they find it obscene or something like that, they're absolutely allowed to take it down. The government has no place in going into social media platforms and telling them what they can and cannot do.
However, I would say with the recent Facebook scandal, this was really a consent issue in which consumers, when they did sign up for Facebook, consented to a privacy agreement which allowed Facebook to release this data. So I really think Congress needs to come in and create some act or some legislation that simplifies the terms and conditions so the average person will know what they're getting into and what rights they're going to be giving up.
Do you think an outright lie should be protected by the First Amendment?
So in US v. Alvarez, they actually ruled that an outright lie is protected, and in this case, a man was telling everyone he got the Purple Medal of Honor in the Army, and that was a lie. And I think it should be protected because everyone has a right to say what they want to say, even if it might not be true.
However, this doesn't include things like perjury and fraud. Those are also exceptions under the First Amendment where you are not allowed to lie. So I think that under only certain circumstances that it's okay.
Let's give yourselves a round of applause.
So I thought this was great. I think the opening statement was really well done. You mentioned, I liked how you mentioned a number of exceptions that government can regulate, linking it specifically to a landmark Supreme Court case as well, which was nice. You brought in a couple philosophers in there, which was good as well. And I liked the beginning with the Vietnam quote as well, and in the context of flag burning. So that was really well done. You hit each part of the question, which was nice, but I think most importantly, you had very good responses, really excellent responses to our questions in a way that demonstrated clearly that not only were you poised during the process, but you know what you're talking about. You have a real comfort with the material. So I was extremely impressed with that. I mean, and really, this is the kind of thing where some of the things that I say are kind of like super nitpicky. Like at one point, I think you might have said something like, well, hate speech is one of the exceptions that government can regulate, but then at other points didn't, and like kind of putting hate speech in the same category as obscenity, which it isn't. But that's, I think overall, the big picture here is that this was a really well done presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You girls are very thoughtful in your responses. I enjoyed that you disagreed on things. I always enjoy that for some reason. I guess my job involves conflict, so I appreciate conflict. And I'm excited to hear your views. You're up to date. Paul was baiting you to see if you answered his questions, and you did. You nailed every single one of them. And I know my colleague Caitlin will probably say this. When you back up your opinions with case law, it really shows your understanding of what the Constitution says, how the courts have interpreted it, and how you are interpreting it in your life. And that's the most exciting part about being a judge. So kudos. This is also just minor. It's a Purple Heart. My husband's got one. So I'm just letting you know. So, because you never know if you're going on to the next round, you just nail that. So.
Yeah, but you guys did. You really had a handle on the case law. It's so impressive when a group can pull out a bunch of cases they didn't cite in their prepared remarks for follow-up. You're just showing us the breadth of material that you prepared, and it's also, you guys were kind of chomping at the bit to answer every question in a way that didn't feel disjointed. I just really got the sense that all of you could have answered any of the questions, and that was really refreshing to see. I thought you guys did a great job. I would love to stay and talk to you more about Facebook.
Thank you.
Good job. job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.